Chazon Ish, Ayom Mer, he used to say, the Chazon Ish, that a Jew must learn to live with contradictions. And he cited as evidence of that we're taught, we have a Masorah tradition from the Talmud, that a prophet must be in a state of happiness to be eligible for getting nevuah, for getting his prophecy. It would then follow that if Lamentations, Eicha, which is written by the prophet Yirmiyahu, is written with Ruach HaKodesh, with nevuah, then he had to be besimcha when he wrote Lamentations Eicha. How is that possible? The whole theme, the sequence, the descriptions that ensue there are very, very heavy and sorrowful. In fact, Tisha B'Av itself has a kind of ironic and paradoxical state, because it's also in the text of Eicha we find that it's called a moed, it's called a holiday, and that has halachic ramifications. So there's an irony there. There's a paradox there, that the inception of that nevuah. So it brings to mind what we're told was said by Reb Chaim Volozhiner. The Gemara asks that the Beis Mikdash destroyed, and that every generation is responsible. But on the other hand, Kol HaMesabel, anybody that mourns for Yerushalayim, Zeiche v'roya b'simchosa, he sees its simcha. It's in the present tense. Now, one would have thought that it might have been phrased in the future tense. As a result, as the gaining of that mitzvah, then he's eligible for seeing it in the future. But that's not what it says. It says at the moment. So Chaim Volozhiner is quoted as having explained that we're taught by Yosef, that Yaakov, his father, refused to receive consolation for him. Why? Because the gzeira, the decree that is built into the nature of the human condition, is that if somebody is in fact gone, has died, then it's nishkach min alev. The mess is nishkach min alev. But if he's alive and just people think he's dead, that's not good enough. So Yaakov was unable to accept consolation for Yosef, because Yosef was in fact still alive, though he had been told, Yaakov, that Yosef was gone. Similarly, said Reb Chaim Volozhiner, Klal Yisrael continues to mourn for the Beis Mikdash. That's evidence that the very inconsolability is per se evidence that the Beis Mikdash Shel Mala, that Beis Mikdash above, still exists and is waiting to descend. When? Be'ita achishena. Either it'll come in its time, or we can make it happen earlier, dependent upon our actions, on our performance. Perhaps we might say that this idea of the Chazon Ish is that our existence is replete with paradoxes, and we must learn somehow to meet this challenge. I would put forth that this is inherent in the nature of man, We have a machlekes early on in Shulchan Aruch between the Beis Yosef and the Ramah on the brocha mafli lases, brocha vashe yotza. Mafli lases. What a wondersome, amazing creature this man is, says Beis Yosef. The intricacy of this creation called the body of man. Mafli lasos. Who could dream of such a creation? The Ramah says it's the improbability of two realms of existence being united. Angel, animal. Two worlds. But they're put together in a new creature called man. Mafli lases. Mafli lases. So man then, according to the Ramah, is created in a state of contradiction. We can then understand that the challenge of human existence is how to resolve this contradiction. It's an ongoing, daily, hourly, from minute to minute, second to second challenge of how do we reconcile contradictions. I have, by the way, understood, and some of us have shared the idea that that's why we spend so much time on Talmud Babli, which our source is Eicho, b'machashakem hoshivani, that in the darkness of Galut, when there's a hester ponim, there's a hiddenness of, we don't see the obvious, overt presence of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's implied. It's there. If you scratch the surface, you're going to see it. But you have to plumb the depths a bit, and a lot. And so we spend so much of our time resolving the contradictions of the Gemara in order to learn, to attain to a level of expertise in how to resolve the essential contradictions of what it means to be human. Man, angel, animal. How to achieve that sense of reconciliation. The resolutions will come through gaining to the expertise in the Shakla Vitalia, the question and answer, the dialectic of the Gemara, which tutors us, instructs us, and in fact, Chazal find the source in Eicha. Why in Eicha? Because that's initiating a period of hester ponim, of hiddenness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pesach, we mentioned that we cite the nail of the Seder, the night of the Seder, that the very night of the week that the Seder falls out, Tisha B'Av will also fall out. And we call attention to it during the different customs of the egg, the dipping in the salt water, the cyclical nature of the egg, cylindrical, symbolizing the calendar and the cycle of human existence. Pesach is a festive time. What does that have to do with Tisha B'Av? We go to great lengths to celebrate the festivity of Pesach. Two kinds of companies. One does well only in a very, very bull environment in the market, when things are very prosperous, does very well. But it doesn't have a strategy on how to deal with recessions and depressions. Another company doesn't do that well in the prosperity, but it has a game plan on how to handle the recessions and the depressions. We're already being taught, Pesach time, that Klal Yisrael is going to have its ups and downs in history. Did it have to be that way? No. That's a function of our performance. But that is the way there will be the denouement, the unfolding of Jewish history. And therefore, to know then that we have a game plan on how to deal with the bear markets, the spiritual bear markets, when Klal Yisrael will be at that brink of falling into chapter 11, not having fulfilled the 10 commandments, we fall into chapter 11, and it's the irony of knowing that that is what's waiting, not necessarily, but probably, and we will be able to deal with it. I find that hinted at, that the Haggadah is the number 4 is recurrent, symbolizes the matriarchs, 4 questions, 4 sons, 4 Lashonos of Gula. That's hinted at in the 4ness. Matriarchs were 4. In Eicha, we read, V'hayisinu ke'yesemim ein ov. We're like orphans without a father. What's missing? The father. And Shlomo HaMelech says, Shma b'ni, listen, my son, to the Musa, to the ethic of your father. That you have to pay attention. Listen, listen. If you don't pay attention, you're not going to hear it. But regarding Torah Imecha, the Torah of your mother, what does it say? Al titosh, don't abandon it. If you don't do something to abdicate, absolve your connection to that, then it's there. It's a fact of your existence. You're Jewish because your mother was Jewish. That's halachic gerus. So if you don't do a kum v'aseh, that's the matriarchal mode. Begins Pesach. Klal Yisrael was passive. The Rebbeinu Shalom reached to them. It happened to them. They didn't make it happen. And that will escort us in the bleakest and most grim moments in Jewish history. There will be that matriarchal mode. V'yinu ki yasemim ein ov. We will be like, we're missing the ethic Musa Avicha, but there'll still be the Teres Imecha. If we still remain inconsolable, if we still remain connected to that space. I've seen various versions of the story of Napoleon riding around Paris on Tisha B'Av, but the first one I heard, and I remain with, though I've seen other variations of it, is that he saw the Jews out in the yard of the Chatzar, of the Beit Knesset, sitting on the floor by candlelight, and he, after querying what this was all about, and he was told, he said, they're going to make it back. Anybody that can still remain connected to this idea, to this concept, to this sense of mourning for that which was, that means it's current. It's there, it's now, it's happening now. They'll make it back. That's in fact because the matriarchal mode, that if somebody isn't consciously uprooting it, al titosh, isn't abandoning it, then even just merely in a passive state, it begins to happen to them, and it continues to happen to them in history. And so, when Jews come together to read the Navi, to read Yirmiyahu, and to restate their sense of Avelus, it's a bittersweet moment. It's a moment, a paradoxical moment, that's replete with all of the irony of the human condition. We take a sense, it's kol moyed. It's a sense of celebrating the fact that we continue to mourn. Rebbeinu Shalom should give us all the zchut to participate in being Mekabel Ponim Mashiach and seeing the Beis Megdash. Hey, Rabbi Amena.